36 million people unemployed. 40% of families who have a worker that makes $40,000 a year and less lose their job last month. 4 million people didn't pay their rent, and the Republican Party says, we don't have any money to help you. Are you kidding me? Where do you guys live?
美国名嘴咆哮美国政府。Number 1.
I think that the Chinese don't know that we can't land a spaceship on the dark side of the moon? Do you think the Russians don't know that for the first time since John Glenn was sent up to orbit this planet, America cannot put a person into space without asking the Russians to do it? That we're not investing in the young generation of Americans? That we're willing to lose the race for artificial intelligence to the Chinese when China is rising? The China's GDP has quadrupled since 2001, tripled since 2003, doubled since 2009. Do we think that no one in the rest of the world knows all of that about us? For 10 years. For 10 years, Madam President. And now we're here with the government shutdown over his broken promise while the Chinese are landing spacecraft on the dark side of the moon. That's what they're doing.
Later.
Number 2.
Chinese. They're taking over. Chinese. Ni hao ma. Xi xing ni. Chinese. It's too late. It's too late to learn Chinese. It's over. No, it's true. It's true. Because it's also one of the hardest languages in the world. I mean, how do you learn Chinese now? Just, they've got over 10,000 characters in the alphabet. You know this? 10,000 characters. We've got 26 in English. And there's still people going, what comes after Q? 26. This is, 10,000 they've got. That's super smart. Although they must have the worst Sesame Street in the world. It must suck being a Muppet in that country. I can just see them on a Monday morning singing to the kids. 西跑冲朝西收西从房间从朝西 5 years later, 从朝鲜请早熟 it's just horrible. Horrible.
Number 3.
That all we've got to look forward to are 30-year-old second-hand trains in the future.
Second-hand, 30-year-old trains, second-hand and substandard. Right. Well, you feel very strongly, obviously, and it's something wherever we go in the country, we're hearing these complaints about our transport structure. Isabel Oakeshott.
Well, totally not. I mean, as a hard-pressed commuter who suffers daily on substandard train services, that absolutely can't be right. And I was looking into this earlier and just wondering, for the sake of argument, how the Chinese do these things. And I noticed that they were able to build a whole new station in the space of 9 hours by flooding it with thousands of workers. We should be much more imaginative about getting infrastructure in quickly instead of condemning people to being isolated in remote areas.
Well, and I shared a taxi coming here, and the commentary I can tell you in the taxi was that the roads looked better than the area where we were living in England. I'm delighted to hear it, but I have to say to you, it was much better than in Buckinghamshire. But everybody in their own area complains, and the truth is our road repairs have been very, very bad, and it's deteriorating. And yes, austerity has prevented expenditure on all sorts of things that we could need to spend money on. But equally, if we cannot borrow more money, so the only way we can do it is by taxing people.
Number 4.
Averaging 9.5% for about 40 years. China growing with extraordinary speed, closing the gap to the United States. 2005 and then 2011. And then in 2014, according to the International Comparison Program of the World Bank, according to GDP measured by purchasing power parity, China actually overtook, by this measure, the United States to become the largest economy in the world. This was a truly remarkable transformation in a remarkably short space of time. But it wasn't just the transformation of China. It was also the transformation, or the beginning of the transformation, of the world. Until very recently, the vast majority of the world that live in the developing countries were very dependent on the West for any aid, for trade, for institutions, for ideology.
Number 5.
Umstand, dass das chinesische Volk ein uraltes Kulturvolk ist, dass die ältesten chinesischen Schriftzeichen beinahe 1000 Jahre älter sind als die 5 Bücher Mose im Alten Testament. Die chinesische Kultur ist heute mindestens 4000 Jahre alt. Die Schriftzeichen stammen aus dem Jahre 3000 vor Jesus Christus.
Ist Alter ein Wert an sich? Kann eine Kultur nicht auch überaltert sein?
Das Faszinierende ist, dass dieses uralte Kulturvolk plötzlich zu einer Vitalität erwacht, mit der heute vor 30 Jahren niemand in Amerika und niemand in Europa gerechnet hat. Die sind nicht überaltert, die sind voller Kraft.
Warum?
Das ist auch für mich ein Rätsel. Sie unterscheiden sich in einem Punkt von allen anderen Kulturvölkern der Welt.
Number 6.
Who used to be very, very poor. Now we're not poor, and some are middle class, some are even wealthy. So what a fantastic story for mankind, and what a good lesson for other countries.
In the last 10 years, the U.S. has been building 500-mile stretch of high-speed rail between San Francisco and Los Angeles. It was supposed to be finished by 2017. And many people think the answer is never going to be finished. So in those 10 years, how much high-speed rail did China lay down that's working today? I guess 16,000. And before the 500 miles is finished in U.S., how much more will be in China? Another 16,000 at least.
So in my book, Destined for War, I have in the first chapter called The Rise of China. And I give a short version of a quiz that I give to my students at Harvard. And the question for the heading is called, when could China become number one? And students guess 2030, 2040, and then I show them a second chart which says already. China is already number one.